So we'll go ahead and get things started. And just want to say first and foremost, thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Nikki Devitt. I am the president of the Petoskey Regional Chamber of Commerce. Joining us on our staff today is Lisa Hoyt, our membership director. And the Petoskey Chamber is thrilled to have joined with Rehmann for this engaging Winfluence session that is going to delve into the dynamic of generations in the workforce. Nobody's allowed to shout out what gen you're from. Don't be like, millennial, Gen Z, X, boomer, just even though we all want to. But so we've got a lot of great things coming up for you today, especially considering that we have this great partnership. So Rehmann is a professional advisory firm that provides accounting and assurance, business solutions, outsourcing, specialized consulting, wealth management services, and so much more. They are a fantastic partner. And for over 80 years, they have provided forward-thinking solutions to their clients. So we are extremely appreciative to be partnering with them. And this is the first of more than one that you'll see in part of our Winfluence series. And for those who don't know, our Winfluence series is a fantastic opportunity for you as an individual, as a business owner, as an employee, to really build stronger business through education and enrichment. And we're very appreciative of the financial support from Odawa Casino, who is our 2024 Winfluence programming sponsor. So I would like to show a quick little video from Odawa before we get things started and make sure that I can do this correctly for you all.
Hi, I'm Ellie Jules. I'm the Community Development Coordinator for Odawa Casino. We are thrilled to announce our sponsorship with the Petoskey Chamber for the 2024 Winfluence programming. We understand the importance of this programming for the growth and development of local workers and businesses. Together with the Chamber, we hope to continue to grow and foster a thriving community.
All right, there we go. Thank you again to Odawa Casino. Before we begin, I want to give one more little housekeeping note. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat and we will answer those at the end. Hopefully we're going to have time. We'd like to make sure we do because we know this is an engaging session and there are going to be questions. And details on the 1 hour continuing education credit that this qualifies for will be shown on the final slide of the PowerPoint. So let's get right to it. I am very pleased now to introduce our session leader for the day, Elizabeth Williams, Principal, Human Resource Solutions of Rehmann. As a strategist and a thought leader, Elizabeth collaborates with Rehmann leaders, drives the growth of the HR solutions practice, leads Rehmann's team of consultants, and impacts her client organizations through progressive human capital strategies. She has over 24 years of experience. Her breadth and depth of experience span the full scope of HR management, including training and organizational development, recruitment, union labor relations, benefits and compensation plan design, company culture change and employee engagement, investigative behavioral analysis, executive coaching, as well as due diligence with mergers and acquisitions on both sides of the process. So we are very lucky to have Elizabeth with us today. So with that, I feel though we should get right down to it. So Elizabeth, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Nick.
I think, Elizabeth, there, we were muted for a second.
Yes, I thought I unmuted, so you didn't hear me. Well, thank you, everyone. I'll start again. Lovely to be here. We are excited to talk about the different generations. And as Nikki said, we would like to make this a bit interactive. So there's some questions that I have for you as we go through, and feel free to participate in the chat when that's time and pepper with questions. And if we can't get to it in that live moment, we'll catch it at the end. And of course, we'll follow up with anyone if we happen to run short on time. So let me show my screen here, and I am hoping to show the right one. Okay. So hopefully you can see my one slide. Yes, I think you can.
Looks great.
Okay, wonderful. Well, let's get started. I'd like to go through our our learning objectives here, if you can see that. So we're going to talk about understanding the different generations and the different traits that are unique in their perspectives. We're going to talk about critical roles across the ages. How can we identify pivotal positions so that way we can ensure that the organization is going to be resilient for the long term? Let's talk about, are you building your leadership pipeline and some tools of how to cultivate that for the future? And how do you assess your talent? Do you have different strategies to review who you could consider for those future leadership roles? So I have some strategies and ideas for you. And we'll talk about mentorship, how to harness that knowledge of the generations for the future generations' continued growth. How do you link succession planning to your business strategy and long-term goals? It's all about that strategic alignment. And how do we continue to innovate across generations and continue to propel those leaders forward as they continue to propel your organization forward? And we'll bring it home with core competencies when we're talking about assessing talent and identifying what those critical elements are to ensure, again, that you are serving the needs of your employees in the various generations, but also serving the needs of your organization. So today's labor market, we're under a lot of pressure and challenges, aren't we? There's a lot of turbulence, a lot of noise. Some of the things that we're facing in this economy is falling labor rates. Unemployment is low. Jobs are evolving and changing. AI certainly is changing the way we're doing business, isn't it? What do we do? Well, one of the key solutions is focus on your people, focus on talent development. Over 62% of people who are able-bodied to work are actually working. There's some post-pandemic that people have just self-selected out of the workforce. It's quite remarkable for whatever reasons it may be. Some of it may be family, right? Some of it may be the gig economy, or some of it may be they retired early, they're done. We saw a lot of that post-pandemic. Talent is shrinking due to these shifts in our workforce demographics. Have you seen this? The boomers are retiring. Some of them are working longer, and then others, they're taking their relatively normal retirement age, whatever that may be in today's day and age. It varies. Gen X, that's my generation. We didn't have as many children. And Gen Y and Gen Z are consequently smaller in population. So those types of reasons are why we're facing this critical shortage of talent. So let's talk about the different generations here. And I've included even the traditionalists. Let's talk about some traits here. You see the dates here that are spanned for their dates of birth across here. And there are still some traditionalists from the silent generation in the workforce today. I have clients, business owners, board members that are in their 80s, and they are still actively working in their industry, and I regularly work alongside them in their business. And then what are those types of, you think of the mindsets, traditionalists. Well, you should be grateful you have a job. And in my day, you respected authority. You didn't question your boss, right? Well, boomers, the ones who are either still in the workforce or already long retired, that mentality of, well, I deserve better out of life. And well, I don't know. I don't know about this view of authority. I think we should get a new perspective. and replace some of those old rules. Gen X comes along and it is a very, kind of keep it real type of generation, like get real, right? Let's keep it in perspective. And for there, we just kind of go along with things. We endure, right? Gen Y, life is a selection of choices, right? It's like a cafeteria. And let's transform those rules and transform our world. Gen Z, well, they're holding on. I'm coping and hoping that, things are gonna get better. And how can we transform what the rules are that we're working with? And and further, do they really need this? Like, questioning their bosses, it's a very different mentality with Gen Z. Do we even need authority? I mean, what is this? It's interesting if you can think of people that you've worked with, or maybe in your own family, if you have a family of different generations here. And then I added, just for fun, the future generation is Gen Alpha. What's their mindset going to be? To be determined. View of authority, it's anyone's guess, right? But I add that because I'm a Gen X and I'm raising a Gen Alpha. And so you can just see the dynamics in play when you skip a couple generations. And I was a Gen X raised by a traditionalist. So those dynamics come into play as well when in whether it's in your family life, your work life. It's not only the generation that they're in, but the generation that they were raised by, aligned by. Um, that's, to me, fascinating. So think of that, and maybe that's some dialogue that you might have with coworkers moving forward. Now, all of this can create some generational friction. Am I right? And I'm curious here, if you want to drop in the chat just for fun. I know Nikki said, "Oh, don't shout out what your generation is." If you want to, what is the mix here? I'm very curious. I shared mine. I'm a proud Gen Xer, a little bit cynical, realist, but feel free to drop in what it is if you want to or not. Gen Y, Gen X, whatever. Kind of fun to see. Oh, look at my Gen Xers. Yes. And all these different types of generations and viewpoints create these friction points in the workplace. We all have differing priorities. We have our assumptions and stereotypes, right? We know we do. And there's different ways that we communicate, even down to email, phone, texting, and so forth. It's and face to face. All of that is different. And it sometimes feels like an us versus them attitude, doesn't it? Sometimes. And think about this. What are some of these friction points? There's different life stages we're in, and maybe someone is raising young children, or maybe they're caring for their aging parents, or they're sandwiched in the middle. I was sandwiched in the middle. It was interesting and challenging. And balancing work, personal responsibilities. And you think about how there's stereotypes that are age related that can hinder the collaboration in a team, or in the manager subordinate type relationship. And it's important for us to be aware of that, be cognizant, so we're not making assumptions based on these stereotypes. And really look at it for, we're all unique individuals. And so therefore, we really need to be cognizant to think of other people in the same way. Different communication styles, which it can lead to a lot of misunderstanding, and the methods that we choose to communicate, and the cliches and cliques, right? That creates that us versus them mentality. So what we're looking to accomplish here is, how can we build a bridge and shorten these gaps, and help collaborate and help foster collaboration across the generations. Here's some of the war of words, as I call them, on social media that you see with these hashtags. Hashtag how to confuse a millennial. We've all heard hashtag okay boomer, or hashtag okay Karen. And this other one, which is kind of disturbing, okay boomer remover, which it's like, how funny, it's not quite funny, But that would come up in hashtags post pandemic that, well, you know how the pandemic affected some folks, and especially generationally, that was the boomer remover. So some of these things have actually become hurtful toward specific stereotyping of the generations. So you have the traditionalists, they're hardworking and responsible, but what are their values? They value discipline, loyalty, stability. The baby boomers, well, they are just so focused on their own self and materialistic things, and having everything that they can. Well, really, are they competitive, goal oriented, and work centric? It's how you choose to look at it, through the negative lens or something that's a little bit more realistic. Gen Xers could be seen as cynical, disaffected. You know, I see that emoji of the whatever, you know. We often get forgotten in the mix of all of these, and we just keep rolling with it. But really, we're independent, we're adaptable, and we look for that work life balance. You hear the terms like latchkey kid. I was a classic latchkey kid, and it's made me who I am. So here I am. Gen Y, that's the words of, oh, they're so entitled these days, and they're lazy. They don't want to work. Maybe it's the type of work that they're seeking. It They want purpose. They do want a lot of feedback. It doesn't mean they can't do the job. They want more. They crave more, and they are looking for more collaboration. So it may seem like they're knocking on their manager's door all the time. Yeah, because they want that. Tell me more. I'm thirsty. Teach me. I want to be involved. Gen Z has that civic minded activism and social issues. Where they want to transform the world. But you know, they're tech savvy. They're really open minded. They accept diversity and value creativity. They're very adaptable and flexible. So let's talk about, for instance, here, why this is so important to understand these different generations. So in the workplace, we can have better communication, understand each other's preferences, for instance, and more collaborative. If it's an email, it's email. If it's a text, but be open to what can work to collaborate and understand that, so that way we can work together better, and not have so much miscommunication. Talk about conflict resolution. This is what happens when people aren't aligned in their thinking, and have that miscommunication. Recognizing those perspectives and allowing for open dialogue to have proactive, productive conversations. There still may be some conflict, but if it's held in, a seek to understand way, it's easier to resolve and reduce that friction. When it comes to leadership development, each generation has different needs and different ways to approach it. And there's succession plans for all levels and all different needs, and we'll go through those. But it takes different approaches. When we're talking about inclusion and diversity, it's important to say, yeah, we are different. We are from different generations, and that's okay. Let's make space for everyone. This promotes that sense of belonging and encourages having those different perspectives. And then think about this, the knowledge transfer. The older generations, they have so much institutional knowledge, that tribal knowledge and experience that they can pass along. Many of them want to. And you get the younger generations who are saying, that's exactly what I want, right? So how can we foster that together? And the adaptation to change. Every generation has a different response to change. It doesn't mean that the older generations are stuck in their ways and they don't want to learn new technology. That's the stereotype, right? But everyone wants to feel like they belong, and everyone has different levels of comfortability and desire for change. So it's acknowledging that. And that will help an organization make any transitions and changes through their life cycle to continue forward. What it really boils down to is embracing all of these different factors and acknowledging them so we can better navigate those dynamics in the workplace. For the end goal, we all want to have successful work, sense of pride, and what have we done for our company that we can see the changes and contributions that we've made. So do you feel any disconnect in your workplace between the generations? What do we need to do in order to overcome this and get our folks talking to one another, working better together? Well, some thoughts to have here, just reflect on this. Maybe this is something you want to screenshot and keep handy, is the thought of be humble. Be open to outside perspectives. If every generation heard that in the workplace, to keep top of mind. Respect. Honor others not like you. Stay curious. Ask questions. Seek out learning. It's for your own development, your own growth, and across generations. So learn from each other. If these are points that you can take back to your workforce and talk about, and just have them reflect on that, have it handy to see, that might help quite a bit with some conflict. They might stop and think, what are some of the positives about the generational attributes? There's a lot of good stuff about each of these generations. As we talked about boomers, there's life lessons and experience that they can share, awareness of pitfalls that they've been through, so they can coach other generations of, don't do what I did. I joke with Gen Zs and Gen Ys to say, let me tell you about some of my past stories and successes. So don't do this. Now you know, or this is what you're in for, as you go through your own career transition. So it's great to tell those stories, and it's great to stop and listen. And for Gen X, that realistic perspective, pragmatic. What if you had a Gen X and a Gen Z get together, and just with the Z coming to the Gen X and saying, I have this great idea. I'm so excited. I want to start this new business and it's going to be fabulous. And what do you think? And you get the Gen X who will, let's kind of talk through this and give you a realistic perspective. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Not to poke holes in your awesome idea, but let's just take it down to a realistic notch or two and see what really is more realistic that you can do, and what do you need, and are you thinking of these other things? So it's that balanced approach. And hopefully that Gen Z will walk away with, oh gosh, I never thought of that, and they can move forward. Or in a collaborative environment, if you can piggyback on it, springboard off of it, and say, oh, that's quite the idea, and it makes me think of this. And so I am a yes and person, not a no but. I love to say, yeah, yes, that is very interesting. If you don't really have a nice compliment to say, acknowledge it at least. It's very interesting. It doesn't mean it's good or bad. And that makes me think of, what about this? Or what if we kind of tweaked it a little bit? So that's that collaboration. So if you can take anything back for yourself, and for your teams, yes, and will go so far to get away from those naysayers. And then whatever great ideas will fall on the table and move forward, and everyone feels like they weren't shut down, so they can continue to feel more comfortable contributing and collaborating. Some people, it's hard. We talk about introverts, extroverts. That's across all generations. To have someone who, for the first time, threw an idea out there, and it wasn't the greatest idea, but someone picked it up and helped it along in a different direction, that's going to help them try again and know that, okay, any idea is good here, and they don't feel that judgment. Gen Y has that exuberance. They're tech savvy as well. They have that optimism, social connections, And Gen Z takes it a step further with all that they can do with social media, that entrepreneurial mindset, that hacker mindset. Hacker is more than just hacking tech, it's hacking processes. And some people would call it the euphemism efficiencies. And other people might say, well, you're skipping steps, right? What gets to the end goal faster? That's a hack. And they're not all bad. So what can we help them focus on and not skip over or gloss over the important things that they might have, they hacked it and skipped it. So how do you treat your generations differently? There's some feedback here to think about. Everyone has different levels of recognition that they like, and how they operate. So from the research that's been done for boomers, recognize what they've contributed and also listen to what they have expectations about. You can't make assumptions. Ask them to share their past experience, their past roles. When I have a Gen Y or a Gen Z who you hear the story, I've been here 6 months, when am I going to get promoted? And it irritates the other folks in generational differences sometimes, doesn't it? You need to put your time in. Well, the best way to do that is talk to someone else, a boomer or Gen X, and say, hey, listen, let me tell you about my career path. And this is what it's going to take to get you to where you are now, the role to where you want to be in your role. There's some delta here. There's some gaps here that takes time, and it takes some focus and mentorship and so forth to get there. So they're thirsting for that knowledge. They don't know what they don't know. So pairing them with a boomer to give them that perspective, or a Gen Xer, the realist perspective, you're going to be helping them. It's not talking down to them or saying, you need to wait your turn and pay your dues. It's saying, this is really the road that it takes in order to get to where you need to go. And being a Gen Z, you may come up with some hacks along the way to get there quicker. Cool. That's great. But you're still going to have to go through these different zigzags in the road to get there. Boomers, they want to have more significant impact. Doesn't mean they always have to be the leader, but there's things that they can do to greatly contribute to your organization if they're willing, right? Not everyone is, but give them that opportunity. And this is where that example I shared about that, telling them the Gen Zs, their history. There's also reverse mentoring. They can learn from the other generations, whether it's a tech, software, or whatever it may be. They can listen as much as they share to learn from the younger generations. And because Gen Zs are really good at hacking, they can help the other generations understand quicker or get to their end goal quicker, hacking it. Isn't that kind of neat? So give boomers space. Don't micromanage them. They got things handled with all of their rich experience that they have. But make sure you're giving them opportunities of, in their career path. Do they want to give back? Do they want to mentor and coach? It's an awesome time for them to do that in their career, specifically as you're building up your future pipelines for succession planning. And remind them, this is some feedback for boomers, remind them of, remember when you were young like them and you were exuberant and impatient? So just understand, when they get a little impatient or frustrated with someone else in the workplace. Gen X, they want to listen and communicate. They want to be heard and understood. They need that genuine connection, no fakers, right? Allow them to function as they need to best. If your organization can allow for it, maybe not put them inside those walls. Thinking outside of the box that phrase came to be with this generation. Don't box them in. It's okay to be brutally honest with them. They're going to be brutally honest with you. Life is tough. They know it. Don't even powder puff it with them. I mean, when I read the slide, it's definitely speaking to me, right? I feel it in my bones. Give them authentic places of community and connection. Give them opportunities to give back through meaningful charities, causes to embrace. That's very important for them. Let them take the lead. And when you give them those boundaries, sometimes you have to operate within the box, right? There are boundaries, but make sure that they're not too restrictive and give them a reason why. Logic is very important to say, and this is why. It's not just arbitrary. And they really understand that it's important to influence through your relationship with other people. It doesn't matter your position. I would often say in my role with Raymond, I was hired in at the principal level. It's very prestigious, and I'm very honored and humbled by that. Other folks may be intimidated by that title. I have to remind myself, oh gosh, that is not where I think. I think about that relationship I have with that person when I'm collaborating, whether they're in my generation, above or below. I think about what is my relational work with them. I don't think about the title. It is ingrained in me. I have to remind myself that other people may be intimidated by the title. So that way I can make sure to diffuse that to get to the relationship. I'm all about, no, I want to communicate with you, I want to collaborate with you, I want to learn from you. You're the one who has the information I need. And it doesn't matter that, you're in a different level. I need you to help me navigate this landscape. So I really try to break down those silos as much as I can and be mindful of that in your organization. We have millennials here, and for them, they're taking steps to connect with others. So please reach out to them. That's what they're looking for. That's why you're getting knocks on your office door. Lead them well. It may feel like, gosh, I have to explain everything to them. Can't they just figure things out on their own? So really, the advice here is, yeah, micromanage them at first because they want that. They're going to soak up everything they can from you. They want that feedback. Am I doing things properly? Is this what I'm understanding? Can you walk me through that? Looking at things at all different angles. And then they have things to contribute too. It's not like they're just looking for you to tell them what to do and how to do it. They're just so fully immersed. And they are the gamers, right? This is the gamifying of tasks and goals. And not everything is a game, but what can you do to make things easier to use? Gamifying things goes anything from work tasks to also the tools and resources that you use in the workplace. Even something as an example of your benefits enrollment. If it's online, streamlined, efficient, it's easy. If you're giving old-fashioned paper, that's a game changer when you can make things more online, a little bit easier and fun. This is a great opportunity to create a mentorship program and vice versa with the reverse mentoring. It's a great generation to tap into for that. Make sure you're giving them feedback about their work. We all want feedback, right? We want to make sure we're doing a great job and tell me if I'm missing the mark somewhere. Give me the critical as well. But they also want to know that they're making a difference. Remember, this is the generation that has a purpose to fulfill in their work. And so when they're doing their work for you, with you, alongside of you, they want to know that it has merit, that it has some weight to it. Because that's going to reinforce a value that they have. Tell them the truth. Don't, powder puff it. Don't play it down or wait until it turns into this big issue and explodes. That's lack of communication. And Tell them why, give them objectives, goals. This is why, this is what we need to do. And then mentor them more than manage at that point. So you might be starting off with that feeling of micromanaging, but it's because they want to walk alongside of you, mentee, mentor, to walk that path, and you can help them through it. So it shifts over time. Gen Z, they have forward thinking goals and dreams as well. This is that social change generation, right? So they're thinking above and beyond themselves. Give them that continued sense of purpose, even if they're doing they're starting out in their career in what you might think are menial tasks, but they lead to the overall greater good of the whole. So that's how you can really connect with them, is that, they're looking, they have aspirations to do more at the organization, but their role, their tasks are so critical to move everything else along the way. If you explain that to them, that feeds them. That is talking to a value inside of them. And you're going to get more out of them. You're going to get that, oh, I have purpose. This is great. And it's going to just stack one thing after another, as they move through their career paths. Think short term objectives, commitments that they can, little wins right under their belts. This is the younger generation, the youngest generation right now in the workforce. So you need to give them their wins. Even if it seems like, well, that's so tiny. And if they say, well, that was nothing, that's okay. It's the recognition that's going to fuel them. And they may need a little help, right, with their objectives. So help them along to pull that off. And they're gonna feel some stress. We all do, right? But help them know that, they may be making a mountain out of a molehill. It's okay. They're gonna be more integrated, that whole person that we've been talking about post-pandemic. It's more integrated with them. Talk about their personal values and how they can fuse that into their career path, whether it's their current job or moving forward through it. Maybe think about it with them and help coach them that, you're not just in your job or stuck in your job, you're moving through it. Build that relationship with them. Otherwise, they're looking for that trust, but you have to make that first step with them to show that you value them. And so critical roles across the ages, what's it going to help us achieve? Having an agile organization so we can move even quicker through difficult scenarios in the workplace. You're going to have more self-sufficient teams. If you are a manager or a business owner who everything has to run through you, the bigger your organization gets, that's everyone knocking on your door. The more that you can empower them to help run your business, the better everyone's going to be. You're going to create adaptable leaders. And those adaptable leaders can then coach their team members through the changes and coach them to be the future leaders. It's a chain reaction. And what do you need to do in order to achieve these? Yes, you need to invest in talent and culture. It does take resources, right? Time, money, people to be those coaches. If you want a long-standing, resilient organization, those investments will pay you back in multitude. Cultural adaptability, how can you attract your top talent and keep your top talent to continue on for the longevity of your organization? How do you build that leadership pipeline? If you can, put in the chat box, let's go through these, and then I want you to share, did I miss anything? Because this is a learning opportunity in sharing here. Core leadership competencies when you're building up your leaders. So don't think about jobs, think about attributes, think about qualities. We're going to start to talk about here your future leaders and those qualities that form the core values that are the bedrock for your company culture. And it goes across all generations. Strong business acumen. And I'm not just talking about their functional job, if they're in sales, if they're in production, if they're in accounting, HR. What do they know about your business? How are they tying their role and understanding to your organization's goals, profitability, how they can make a difference, even if they are not affecting like a revenue producing department, which HR normally is not? But we have a responsibility to develop others who are revenue producing, right? So we're still part of the process. What business acumen do all of your current and future leaders possess? Think about cultivating that image and personal brand, having integrity and ethics to represent your organization as a leader. How adaptable are they? Can they help foster change management? How is their EQ developing? These are all things that you can create learnings around for them to foster. Effective communication and listening, of course, and having influence over others and persuasion, particularly in tough times. How do you keep people motivated and hanging on when your organization goes through those changes and dips and changes and turns? Do they have the critical thinking and vision? It takes time to build that. How are their collaboration skills and team building? And when I'm thinking of team building as a leader, it's not that you're part of the team and participating, it's that you are the one role modeling it and encouraging it and bringing it out in others. It's team building 2.0, the next level. How are they handling conflict resolution amongst others as well and being that role model? Are they agile? Are they continuing to be curious? I say this phrase a lot. I'm just curious. Can you tell me? And then my question comes out because I don't want to come across as being accusatory or having an emotional affectation. Why I'm asking, there may be something there that I'm trying to find out, or there may be something that I'm feeling, an emotion. But more importantly, I want to show that I'm curious. I am open-minded. I'm just curious about what this is about, so I can learn. And perhaps there's an issue here that I spotted that needs to be corrected. Stay curious. Stay resilient. Build that resilience and manage stress. All of these competencies have nothing to do with doing their day-to-day job, does it? Like the production work. I call it producing. I have to produce in my work, but I am responsible for these types of core competencies in order to lead my team. Not once did I say anything about an HR function in there. How do we build the foundation for future effective leadership? The vision forward here, your leaders now and the ones that you need to replace the leaders who will eventually be either moving on or retiring. This is critical to equip your emerging leaders for success. Do you have plans in place to develop future leaders to step in these critical roles? That's the talent shortage, right? You need to invest those tools in order to help them continue to grow. You need a strategy. You need a blueprint. You need a succession plan. And a succession plan is having that strategy that a business deploys to make sure there's a smooth transition of leadership role changes, or maybe new roles are created. Identify who the talent is, evaluate those employees. Do they have those particular qualities, competencies, motivation, and so forth to be put into the leadership track? Provide them with the tools and training and resources in order to step into being an emerging leader. and then you rinse and repeat. They need a regular cadence. You need to give a regular cadence of ongoing reevaluation. Are they hitting those milestones? Are they listening? Are they applying what I'm teaching? What is it that I can do differently in my coaching if it's not quite catching on, if anything? A well executed succession plan is going to ensure that your organization will continue, minimize disruptions, and it prepares not only your organization, but your future leadership for ongoing growth and the changes. There's a saying that in order to get promoted, a thought process. If you're looking to get promoted, who's going to replace you? So think about that the next time you're having a conversation with someone well, I was hoping I would get that role. And they're valuable where they are. And it's unfortunate if a manager says, well, you're so good at what you do. We don't want to lose you. Can't you just stay where you are and someone else gets the job? That sometimes happens. It's real. But most importantly, as an individual, who are you training up behind you on your team, fostering their growth to replace you so you could move forward in your career path? Maybe it's still within the organization, maybe it's a different path outside of the organization. But as leaders of a team, we have a responsibility to develop our team. It's only going to be for the longevity and greater good for the employees as well as the organization. So I ask you, and you don't have to answer this, it's rhetorical. Do the leaders in your organization understand the role that they play in succession planning? It does not all fall on HR. HR can help design and implement and roll out succession planning. They cannot run from department to department training and coaching your individual employees. And because you work so closely with your teams, you know who the emerging leaders are better than anyone else. So it does not fall only on the shoulders of a few. It falls on all of the leaders, that they are also responsible for this in their role. How do you teach them to do that, right? But this is how leaders within organizations play such critical roles with succession planning. You want to make sure that those leaders, they're aligned with the company's vision and strategy, that they are with an open, honest heart looking to identify high potentials and not being biased, not playing favorites, not being discriminatory, and not checking out. Pick the leaders that have their heart in it and they get it. Mentoring and guiding development of their team. Do they possess that motivation and understand their responsibility? Are they an advocate and sponsor for others? That it's not just about them, it's about the greater team that they are leading. Are they contributing to the learning development culture of your organization as a role model, encouraging others? Can they critically think about those elements and roles and competencies that are really needed? Not just filling a spot, or we've got 2 accounts payable persons, we have so many sales folks, and what do they really need in those roles in order to provide that value and move the company forward? Can they tell when a team member is ready to go forward in a new role, and how can they help them accelerate? Leaders actively shape these succession plan processes, and that's what's going to keep that pipeline going. It's also going to help keep people in the organization. It's also going to help when people move around and have promotions and changes and so forth, and as well as new hires. What are some different strategies you can deploy? I gave you some options here. These are actual programs, training resources, and tools that you can use. You can find plenty of resources online. I'm not going to go great in depth. We have the 9 box where it rates employees based on performance and potential. It's a little bit subjective. I've used them. I don't find them to be completely objective. However, it's handy, it's useful, it's a tool, not a rule. Performance versus potential matrix, that's another. It's just laid out a little bit differently, but it still is talking about how can we say who has high potential for performance and for that leadership path. Talent mapping, it's looking at your employees' skills, competencies, and seeing, oh, they have some gaps here to get to this role, to this role. Well, they have some gaps. How can we get them ready? Right? You got to know what all the competencies are. Say in these two roles, you've got to know what the critical role competencies are, and then you assess where the employees sit within that, and then you identify where the gaps are, and then you train them up to move on. It's a process. The succession planning matrix, again, another tool evaluating their performance. Are they ready? And are they aligned with the organizational goals? There's no sense building a succession plan if it doesn't really have a hooked in purpose to achieving the goals of the organization. High potential programs or high pose, that's another program that can be created. Leadership competency frameworks to assess employees compared to those essential leadership competencies. The ones that I listed before, those attributes, there's many more that you can come up with on your own, and by no means is it going to be a one size fits all. What fits best for your organization, and what tools can you infuse into those top core competencies that are important for you? And they may they should vary by role as well. How do you review talent? Here's some more resources. Again, I'm not going to go into great depth. You can Google some of these to give a little bit more flavor. If you have an HR department, this is a great, they may have these resources, or it's a great project for them to dig into. 360 feedback surveys where the employees are evaluating, it's like an upward evaluation for feedback. Psychometric tests, cognitive assessments. This is anything from DISC to predictive index to, you name it. There's tons of resources out there. What works best for your organization? Of course, performance evaluations. Having assessment centers, this is where, you're playing out scenarios. It's a little bit more, robust of a strategy. Behavioral interviews, assessing candidates. This is for the new hire, for recruitment processes. Are you asking questions to get them talking about examples rather than just giving hypotheticals? I'm very big in behavioral based interviewing when I recruit. This is the crux of how I vet out a culture fit for clients. Development centers is similar to an assessment center, except that it's more they're participating and then given instant feedback and coached, not just assessed. They're actually given feedback. You can have mentorship programs. Think about stretch assignments where they can't fail. They're stretching out of their comfort zone, but they have someone alongside them. So I call it also there's job shadowing. That's a great way to learn. And then job rotations. In some organizations, they may be nimble enough to have a person move around and learn about the organization that way. Internship programs often have that, and it's great for them to move through the process of what could be a good job for me right when they're out of college, for instance. Webinars and conferences, that's another way. And that mentorship, you definitely want to take the time to see who you can pair together, especially across the different generations. Think about that. They can share stories, they can reverse mentor. It's going to build that connectedness and commitment to the company. You're going to continue to build that learning culture, help them learn how to make better decisions. And it's kind of nice that they're going to stick around longer. About 50% of the case, you get employees staying longer with the company if you're investing in them and giving them a mentor. Make sure that you are aligned with the company's strategy. As I had said before, what's the reason? What's the purpose? Otherwise, why are you doing it? Align it to the business strategy. What are the critical roles? Develop that pipeline as we talked about. Mitigate risk. This is why it's very nice to have such a program as thinking about succession planning. What are the pitfalls that you don't want to see happen? If you've got a talent gap, a skill gap, someone gets promoted into a role and they're not ready for it, it could affect your sales revenue. It could affect the supply chain, you name it. If they're not ready and you place them into it, you're going to have huge disruptions. Think about how you can incorporate diversity and inclusion. And generational differences is a way to diversify, create belonging. Evaluate their performance, give them that feedback, coach them. Communicate, give them that transparency. Share the strategy with them and how they fit into it and what they need to do in order to further their career toward that strategy. Transparency is huge. I have been in organizations who have a high potential program and they don't tell the high potentials that they're on a list. So they're not doing anything other than their normal job. And yet they're going to be tapped to be a VP of sales or whatnot in the next 3 years or so when that person chooses to retire, and they have no idea if they're on a list or off the list. Be transparent with your folks, and that includes telling them if they're not really on that track. Another tool, which I love, Rehmann uses these individual development plans. So this is what they include. Read through it. And it doesn't have to be anything like a very complicated blueprint. You're simply creating a plan for them to be the best version of themselves, not only to do their job, but to show up at work and have, again, reflect on those core competencies, their brand, their image, their ability to influence others. When you have something really difficult you have to do in an organization, it's news no one wants to deliver, but someone has to, and it's not always the president, the owner, or the CEO. It's your frontline leadership. And then they have to live with the folks grumbling with them all day long about the bad news. But if they have the proper tools to influence and persuade them and reassure them, that's going to trickle down and it will calm down any of the concerns, and business will continue on. That's why those core competencies, that's why they're important. They keep things moving forward. Keep that innovation across generations top of mind. Experiment. Talk about diversity and inclusion. Talk about legacy and emerging technologies together. There are stakeholders in every generation. Think about keeping agility at top of mind and how you can continue to promote generational collaboration. It's a delicate balance, isn't it, between honoring tradition and embracing the future. Acknowledge both. The core competency is continuity. I can't stress this enough. So keep it top of mind. Continuous learning, digital literacy. I love that phrase. We've talked so much about mentorship, succession planning, and so forth. So this is like a summary, what we've already talked about. Use data-driven insights. Use your predictive analytics. There are so many systems. Maybe you don't have them, but look into them if you don't. They're wonderful. And we are at the top of the hour. I thank everyone for participating today. If there were questions in the chat, we will get them and we will reach back out. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. Here's my LinkedIn and my email. If you scan this QR code with your phones, you'll see it'll land on our employee engagement survey, so you can see, learn a little bit about that. Surveying your employees for their level of engagement is critical. It's huge about what steps forward you can take with your organization. And as we've stated, today's session is eligible for 1 credit hour for your recertification, either through SHRM or HRCI. And with that, I thank everyone for having me be a guest with you today. It's been my pleasure talking about these topics, and I certainly hope to engage with you again.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. Such a great amount of information. I do see a lot of questions in the chat in regards to sharing your presentation, because there was a tremendous amount of detail in a lot of those slides that I think folks would love the opportunity to dig in a little bit deeper. I'm hoping we can do that.
Mhm. Sure.
Wonderful. And as everybody is getting ready to sign off, as Elizabeth said, we'll make sure that if you have direct questions, we will get those responded to for you. I love the comment, though, any books you recommend to discuss on this topic. I think sharing knowledge and really digging into generations and how that
Mhm.
works, especially from management up to coworkers within an organization who might not be in leadership roles. I think that becomes a lot of an issue in a lot of instances right now as we start to kind of diversify our workforce, if you will. So definitely we'll reach out to everyone. Don't worry about that. We hope everybody enjoyed our program today and you see the value in our Winfluence programming, because we have an incredible way that we're going to do this for the rest of the year. It's called Subscribe and Save. So businesses and individuals have an opportunity to get 10 admissions to all the Winfluence events. And then, or if you're an individual, you access all the events and a recording of the virtual like we did today. Events like these, we did free today, but going forward, events like these normally are $25 per person. So by signing up for the Subscribe and Save, $500 for a business, $100 for an individual, and I can promise you that we've got about 20 on the books for the rest of the year. It's a great opportunity to get yourself as an individual training or your team on a larger scale. Great training and opportunities on all kinds of topics, everything from, as we did, generations in the workspace to AI, to mental health, to business concerns, to everything across the board as personal development. We've got it all coming for you. So thank you for being here. We truly appreciate it. And once again, we will get those follow-up emails out to everyone with the slides from today. Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, Elizabeth. And I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Bye, everybody.